and it just slowly makes you miserable and more miserable every single day. We don't take the time to love ourselves, give ourselves the self-respect, revive what we always love doing, move our body the way it needs to do, and rebuild our life.
What does it look like to utilize natural movement, mental fitness, and nutrition to heal our body, to bring us back to the true path of our mind and body, to find purpose, passion, and health?
Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to Season 2 of the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast. Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy.
We're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery through the 5 mountains of cutting-edge development and mental fitness. Our guest today is Andrew Pertulis, a 16-year U.S. Air Force active duty explosive ordnance disposal technician. He built Primal Path to self-learn mental fitness and recovery from multiple TBIs and PTSD from 5 deployments of disarming roadside bombs. He graduated from CCMT Massage Therapy School in 2018 and now focuses on teaching others how to heal naturally. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, guys. It's awesome to be on this side of the podcast for once, rather than the one with the list of questions.
It's a different experience.
Right?
So, Andrew, tell us what you're most excited about in your life right now.
What am I so excited about? I'm excited that I'm capable of being creative and being able to play as an adult. It's simple as that, and it's something that we lose touch with so easily because the world just kind of leads us in one direction, and sometimes we miss the sight of all the fun that we can have and follow the passion of what we truly believe in to make a living. And I am happy that I'm capable of doing that. And to me, that's the dream. It's not about the money in the pocket. It's about making sure that every day is worthwhile and that you love what you're doing. So I'm not really specific on specific things, but overall, in general, yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's great. I love how you tie that together, right? Work and play, making sure that there's a good balance, and that, every day we get up and we get to do this, right? It's not something that we have to do. It's something that we've chosen to do, and we get to get out there and help people be better at who they want to be. Wonderful. So Andrew, we usually like to get a little background on our guests. Can you tell us what your life was like, before the Air Force, and then, how you got to where you're at?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small little country town in Connecticut, and both parents had jobs. My dad was a mechanic and built an addition on the house growing up, and he worked for FedEx. My mom worked for another company. And she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and type 1 diabetes when I was still a really young kid. And she was a woman that was dealing with chronic pain ever since a young age, but just kind of kept it hidden. And I never realized it until later in life, how big of an impact it had to do what I'm trying to do right now, or how many lessons I learned from her. But as I was growing up, I always either wanted to be in the military or wanted to be a doctor. And so I just kind of slightly reversed the order and changed doctor to a coach / trainer / movement specialist a little bit. But I always wanted to do a little bit of those things. My grandfather was in the military. And I just always had a pride in my country. My parents grew me up to be very independent. I had an older brother as well, too. I was also the black sheep of the family that always found ways to get out of things and connive my way. I'm a good wheeler dealer on those things. So my parents you get good grades, you get to do what you want. So I kept my good grades, which relatively came easy, which my parents hated because I was always doing what I wanted. To the point where I almost became too independent. But at the same time, growing up, I enjoyed flight. So in 4th grade, I did a lesson on flight, a school project, the science of flight. And I flew this paper airplane and it landed close to this target. And they said, if you get close, we'll take you up on a discovery flight and you get to fly a plane for a little bit. So I did that. I learned to love the fly. And my dad said, if this is something you want to do, it'll lead you far in life. And I said, okay. So he would work overtime so I can get these flight lessons. And I got I flew a plane solo by myself before I had my driver's license, which I always laugh about.
Awesome.
And so at 18, I got, my pilot's license, which was a huge accomplishment as well too. But during this time frame, I didn't want to go to colleges. I didn't like writing essays. I didn't like English. I love math and science. I was a big nerd on that stuff. I liked the body. I was art. I liked art. I was creative. I was a skateboarder, and I got along with all the people in school, but I never really fit in there. I always like to try to be opposite of what everyone else is doing. But in that process of even flying and being, different, not wanting to go to college, my parents said, what about the military? And I always thought about it. So I decided to look into it. And I go, yeah, maybe I could fly, planes, which is exactly one of your past podcasts. It's like one of those things, like you want to be an astronaut or president. Flying fighter jets is going to be pretty sweet. But I realized I'd have to go to college for that, and I didn't want to do that. So I looked at the list of, I went to a military recruiter, and they said this job, EOD, explosive ordnance. It was like this elitist brotherhood where they go and play with bombs and work Secret Service missions. And, at 16 years old, you're like, can life get any better?
Right.
Like as a guy, I'm like, can I get to blow stuff, get paid to blow stuff up and work Secret Service? It sounds really awesome. So I signed up for that. I became an explosive ordnance disposal technician and headed off to boot camp in 2002. And in that process, I ended up taking some college to that as well, but went through, got into the military. EOD is all 4 services go to the same exact school. So we're sitting in the same classroom. I was in the Air Force since I was flying. I went to the Air Force and did this, but you're sitting in the same classroom as the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force. So it's good joint service school that you go through. And you learn a lot. I learn a lot about the services, giving each other a hard time. And each service has a specialty. So the Navy deals with a lot of the underwater. The Marines are usually right there on the front lines to help out with whatever they need to do, but they're always infantry person first. You've got the Army that does a lot with the land ordnance, which is the mines and stuff like that that are on the ground. And then you have the Air Force that in general was in charge of all the aircraft, all the ordnance that's on the aircraft. Well, after the war kicked off, which is right at the time that I signed up, there was not enough EOD techs. There's only a couple thousand in the entire world, and this entire war turned into that. So they were in high need, which means we were doing 6 month to 8 month deployments with 6 months off. So we never had that time to reset and kind of allow our body to digest everything that happened. But we were also doing tasks well outside what the normal capabilities. So for the Air Force, I was in charge of still supporting Secret Service missions, going out wherever the president, first lady, foreign dignitaries, wherever they would go in the world. And I'd be like the little guinea pig. So I go around, I touch all the buttons, I open up the doors, and anywhere that they would go, we would patrol and look to see if somebody hit a bomb, no matter what it was, the motorcade routes, the buildings, stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I got some pretty sweet vacations out of that, like going to Cabo, and I had the day off. So I went marlin fishing and snagged an 80-pound striped marlin.
Wow.
I want to say some of these missions are pretty sweet. And at the same time, we were stuck in, you get the not so fun missions of, hearing mortar rounds go off while you're in India without having a weapon or body armor. So you have like the push and pull of those missions. But so we had all that stuff is normally what we did and took care of the aircraft. But because there's a shortage of EOD techs, we ended up backfilling a lot of the Army supply. And then we became what we were quoted as the redheaded stepchild of the Air Force, because we were doing our own thing and we didn't have to go to commander's calls, and we, like that whole type of special forces mentality, but we're not considered special forces in the Air Force. But with that, as the deployments went on, I was supporting SEAL Team 7. I supported ODA, Army ODA, or Special Forces, Polish Task Force Special Forces, Estonians, French, Romanian Special Forces, you name it. They legitimately, if somebody needed it when you're out in the desert, like there's not enough of us, and technically the US had the quote unquote best of the best for EOD techs, the most knowledge and training, that we would jump on all these units. So we legitimately were living with villages, living with tribes, living with the local people, learning how they function, seeing how things have happened in the most unmodern places of the world. You know, people where they're 3-year-olds walking miles to their sheep to go get water, and they're in charge of like 60 sheep, and you're like, a 3-year-old can do that? I did not know that was possible. like that type of mentality. And one thing that I noticed is all the time that I was over there, I started dealing with a lot of pain in my body, a lot from hiking up the mountains of Afghanistan. And this stuff was just killing me. I had permanent back issues and hip issues and movement issues. And I would go to these countries, and whether it was a deployment or not, and I'd look around, and there's 2 things that I saw. One, I saw that people move well at all ages. Now, there's tons of people that are injured and have other diseases and stuff like that we can prevent. But why did all these people move well? Why could these people get down into the bottom of a squat so well at 90 years old and not even have an issue? And then at the same time, how are these people happy? How is this tribe that's getting bombed every day with kids running, like, how are these kids running around with smiles? They don't have toys, they don't have any electronics, they don't have anything but like a rock, and they're happier than any kid is in America. And as I saw that, more and more cultures that I experienced and got to live with or learn from, I would dive into even their religions. When I was in India, I went to the Elephant Island and got to walk around the entire Elephant Island to see these caves with all these statues of Shiva and Vishnu and Ganesh. And I got to hear their culture and their story from these people, the few people that still live on the island. And what it did is made me really reevaluate what is important in life, what is my purpose in life, and at the same time, what am I doing with my life? What is it worth, and what is the value, and what does it really mean to live? And this is what started getting things into my head of finding the true meaning of life for me, because everyone has that. And as time went on, I was dealing with a lot of mental stuff from war, being blown up and shot at and all this other stuff, multiple TBIs and PTSD. And it got to the point where I was using alcohol to put myself to sleep because I was afraid to go to bed. It went to doctors of taking countless pills, including benzos that they just throw at you like they're candy and put you on and say, this is going to fix you. And then you just sit and talk about your problems. And I knew I needed help, but I didn't have a clue how to do that. And I did this over and over and over and over again, just knowing I needed to find a fix. And I finally ended up getting out of the military. And when I got out of the military, there was no support. I didn't have my brothers that I saw every single day to talk war stories to, or whatever it was that I could relate to. And that's when I started falling further down a hole towards suicide. And it just turned into this thing that said, I need to fix myself. And the only thing that was fixing me was movement. The only thing that actually got stuff out of me and got those feelings out of me was movement. So, I got out of the military to fly helicopters, and that VA program was actually shut down because people abused the hours. They were just getting free hours and to fly. So I couldn't fly helicopters. So I got out of the military to go into a program to fly helicopters. But in the back of my mind, I always had this thing since 2012 that I was going to open up a gym. I said, I want to open up a gym because this is what helps me. And I believe I have a passion for coaching, and I believe I can help other people out. So it all turned out for the better, because if I was flying helicopters, I probably would have purposely either crashed that helicopter, I would have been drunk flying a helicopter, or done something dumb, and I probably wouldn't be alive here today. So as much as I still wish I was doing that, I'm forever grateful I'm not doing that, because I feel like this is more of my path. And from there, I opened up a gym. I was still dealing with all my mental issues, trying to figure that out, running, 7 jobs and sleeping 1 hour a night. And then just going further down the hole of like, how can movement and how can nutrition fix me? And then teaching myself mental fitness, teaching what it's like that, hey, I'm going to have chronic pain for the rest of my life, and my brain is jacked up and no one can fix me. But you know what? I can either sit here and complain about it every day, or try and make steps necessary to change that mindset. And that was the hardest decision that I ever made in my life, was to take those steps. And not only was it the hardest decision to make in my life, it's still sometimes the hardest decision to sometimes stick to, because the world is not fair. You're not guaranteed to just because you do something good that the life is going to be good for you. You're not guaranteed any of that. You can be the best person in the world and have the most miserable life. And I learned a lot of that from my mom. My mom is a saint in every aspect, and I love my dad too, don't get me wrong. They're both very valuable in my life. But my mom dealt with pain, and she just said, you just got to believe and keep on pushing and do what you can. And I think a lot of her mentality played off into my mental strength to be able to push past a lot of this stuff to the point where I feel so much better by doing those things that no one wanted to do. No one told me that I need to work on movement. No one told me that I need to start meditating. No one told me that breathing was going to help. No one told me that doing all these silly stuff like jumping in cold rivers and taking clients into the cold lakes to go swimming is going to help me. These are just things that I tripped upon, whether it's through different cultures over the past, I would say about 15 to 18 years that I've seen and witnessed. And as you know, many people think this alternative medicine is not actually alternative. It was the original way that we heal. Homeopathy, Ayurveda, like all that stuff. We could use plants and medicine to heal our body. We don't need to take a pill. We could take the root of what that pill is based on and introduce it into our life through nutrition. And the more I dug down that hole, the more I realized that this is exactly what I want to do. And more people need to realize this. But it's a tough journey, and a lot of people don't like doing those alternatives, and they're not mentioned and they're not supported because they don't bring money to any companies that are out there today. So my goal is in general just to teach people the knowledge to be able to heal themselves. My goal is, yes, I'd love to have clients, but if I have 0 clients, it means I did my job. If I have 0 clients, it means there's enough people out there that know how to fix themselves that I'm permanently out of a job and I don't need to do what I need to do. And ever since that change, it's just always pushing me to introduce or see people like you guys doing what you were doing, the Mental Fitness Collective, and just kind of networking and seeing how big we are as a whole. But we got to go out and reach and do this networking to spread that message so people see that, hey, guess what? You could do this without having, spending your life going out and hiking once you retire, not spend your life sitting in doctor's offices and taking pills when you retire. And at the same time, if you are retired and doing that, there's ways that we could still work with you to get out of that position to make sure that your life is worth living for, that you have a purpose, a passion, and a drive. So I guess that's a really long spiel and of a little bit of everything, but hopefully that encapsulates most of what you're looking for.
When I think about energy and vitality, I think about a kid. They have the energy to play, run around, climb things. That energy that feels like you just can't contain yourself. It's the stuff we've always wished they could just bottle up and sell to us, right? Well, this company's found a way to do just that. Amari's Happy Juice Pack. Mood, motivation, energy, things our bodies can naturally produce when both our guts and our brains are happy and communicating. And we can actually improve that process of communication across the axis of the gut and the brain. This is cutting-edge science. This is game-changing information. This is where science meets soul. This is Amari, and we're helping people feel better naturally. Boost your serotonin and GABA. Balance your neurotransmitters. Nourish your gut. The things that make you want to do. Start feeling better the natural way. Check out the links in the show notes for discounts and more information.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That was wonderful sharing. A couple things resonated for me. I took some notes as you were talking. So at one point, you just said, you know what? I made a decision to change. And that was the pivotal point, or as with all of us, right? Once we make a decision, we turn that into action, and that's where we start making progress. And the other thing that spoke to me was the helicopter pilot story about wanting to be a helicopter pilot, right? And getting out of the active duty service to do that. And then that program going away. Sometimes the universe moves us in certain directions. We just have to be open to listening to the message, right? It gives us hints or clues as to which way we should be going. So beautiful. Thank you.
So a lot of this that you're sharing with people and training folks is through Primal Path. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
company you started. So you call that fitness as intended. Could you tell us what that means? How is fitness intended?
Yeah. So, when somebody asks me, what do you do? Well, we do fitness. Well, what do you do? And you kind of dive into the absolute root of it. And sometimes it's hard. Like, well, yeah, we do like this exercise and we do this. Well, what is it? Well, it's fitness as intended. It's fitness the way that our body was made to move. So I've taken, like Andrew Pertulis was one of my biggest role models for the past 10 years, 10, 12 years. I found him. He's from Israel. And he is if there was a god of movement, he would be the movement god. I would say that this guy knows more about anything. And to the point where like people like Conor McGregor have him like personally reaching out to them to teach them movements. But in general, I saw the way that he moved, and it was just natural. It's very animal locomotion like. And I was just fascinated by it, wanted to know a little bit more about it, and realizing that's the way we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be climbing trees. We're supposed to be building stuff. We're supposed to be wandering. We're supposed to be nomadic. Like that's who we are as humans. We're social butterflies. We get into all these different things. But the culture that we live in, this concrete jungle nowadays, requires us to follow the same exact path, mostly sit in the same seat. We're just doing forward and back, up and down movements. There's no rotation. There's no lateral movement side to side. And because of that, we're seeing all this pain that's coming into the low back, into the hips, into the shoulders. You go to the doctor for your back, and the back doctor, or the doctor goes, you need to go to a back doctor. You go to the back doctor. He goes, oh, I think it's your hip. You go to the hip doctor. The hip doctor's like, no, the pain's in your back. Go to your back. And you get stuck in this cycle, and then you're like, oh, I want an MRI. Well, first you got to do PT first. First, we need x-rays. The x-rays aren't going to show anything, but this is the checklist that we need to go into. And everything is so systematic today. And our lives are systematic that we get these tunnel vision, just like racehorses. We put those things on here that we can only look forward and we can't see the peripheral vision. But our peripheral vision is what allows us to rotate and allows us to bring that movement back into our life. So we need to take those blinders off and realize that there's more than just forward and back and up and down. And even though we don't live in a world that we have to build our own houses and hike and go through the jungle to find our food or do, we're not on a farm planting and gardening and raking and seeding. Even though we aren't doing those, we need the movement of those things. So our goal for our classes, our personal training, is to guide people back to explore movement, create play, and do fitness as it was intended. Fitness, which is fitness that you don't think about. Like, for instance, you talk about it all the time too, that to be fit when you're a kid, you didn't go to a gym. To learn how to stand up as a child and walk, you didn't have your parents telling you to do 3 sets of 5 reps of single leg steps. Like that stuff didn't happen. Like your body can knows what it needs to do. And if you just take the second to listen to it when you're feeling in pain and be like, my body wants to hinge in half and rotate. And we go and do that, you might find that you're relieving that pain. So fitness as intended is exactly what it is. It's to get our body to move the way it needs to move. And then we call it fitness. It doesn't have to be super heavy. Doesn't have to be super hard. Doesn't have to be for a set reps or weight and all that other stuff. It all has its benefit and its purpose, but just get your body to explore movement, bring the fun back into it, roll down a hill, do a somersault carefully, like I'm probably on pads, like on a bed, I would say is probably the way you want to do the first somersault, because going on the hard ground might not be the greatest idea if you haven't done one of those at a time, but try and explore movement and try to create that play in our life that we're missing out. And you're going to see that now you could roll down a hill in a minute rather than wait 2 hours in a doctor's appointment for a cortisone shot that's going to only last a month and not fixing the problem. So that's what fitness as intended is going back to move the way we need to move.
Wow.
That makes so much sense to me. Just something you said made me think about that we are nature. We may live in houses and think that we're separated, but in essence, humans are part of nature. So it makes perfect sense to use our natural processes to heal and to move. So that very powerful, makes perfect sense to me.
So, Andrew, how does someone slow down and listen to their body to understand, and how do they interpret those signals that their body is sending them?
And that's one of the hardest things that I would say. And like, those are one of those things that you have to spend time with yourself. We are inundated with an overflow of information coming from every angle, entirely docked in and connected to the system. And I don't mean a system in a bad or a good way. I just mean we're part of a system right now. There's no way that we can avoid information unless we leave our cell phone at home. We all know that ain't happening. Or disconnecting in some sort of way. You know, for me, like, war built my mental toughness because it forced me in environments to be bored. It forced me in environments to not be able to do anything, to go where I needed to go, and reevaluate the important things of life. I'm like, all right, today I need to wake up. My team members need to stay alive. I need to put food and water in my body, and I need to make sure that my equipment is good to go. That's my entire purpose. Not, I wonder what type of cereal I want today when I wake up, or like, man, you know what? I gotta drop the mower off to get fixed, and then I'm gonna go run and pay these bills. So creating the simplicity of our life and minimizing the amount of doors we need to open every day will allow us to start seeing a little more of a self-reflection, because I believe that I live my life by three things. I live it by integrity, I live it by discipline and resilience. And those are the three key components to my life that every day I wake up, they're non-negotiables. And setting those non-negotiables are very valuable for me to make sure that I can do what I can do. So I always have integrity in what I do. And if I falter, it's my fault, and I will gladly admit that. I have the discipline to make sure that I'm consistent with what I do. And I'm a human, so I falter all the time. But as long as I continue to try to follow through on that, and then the resilience, having the self-reflection, being able to accept when I'm wrong, being able to take bad situations instead of sitting and dwelling on them. Let's start and find a way to get this fixed. And with that, I like to look at the door method that I just spoke about. So reducing the amount of doors so we can be a little bit more in tune with our body. Every day we wake up, we're filled with probably a laundry list of things to do, right? Whether that's, I need to do my laundry, I need to go pick up the kids, I need to work out, I need to go to work, I need this TPS report to be done, I need to go back here, I forgot the salt. The list goes on. And this is why writing things down is always really beneficial, in creating lists, because now it's out of your subconscious, it's out of our head. With our subconscious making, I forget, like 200 to 400,000 decisions in a second, where our consciousness makes, like, I forget what it is, 3 to 10 every second. Don't quote me on those, obviously, but it's some astronomical difference that we have. And if we can take the stuff that's running our brain, the subconsciousness that's getting in our head and blocking the true purpose or passion that we have, or vision that we have to get stuff done, we ended up just sitting there and just thinking about them all day long, and maybe checking one off if we're lucky, or just listening and planning it out to get it done. But if we could start minimizing those options that we have every day, it allows us to create more time in our day to do the things that we need. And it also allows us to self-reflect and slow down. Make sure, all right, today I have tons of stuff to do. I just want to get these couple things done. And in general, like I ask people to do, is 5. Choose 5 things that you want to get done today, because I guarantee your list is super long. And I don't care if they're 5, 10-second projects. That's it. Or 30-second projects. It doesn't matter how long it is. Just getting something done is going to help start letting you focus and feel productive, and allow that to kind of come into vision of, like, okay, cool, this feels good. I got that little bit of reward of getting this done. I'm a little bit less stressed, and now I'm less focused. So we can see, as we remove the options of all the things we have behind the door. Door 1 is laundry. Door 2 is picking the kids up. Door 3 is work. Door 4 is fitness. If we can keep them from growing, then it allows just more of the opportunity for us to focus on the current thing that we're doing. And in general, like I said, but in general, it just comes down to trying to create time of self-reflection and just think about where you are, what you want in life, what's your purpose, and stuff like this when you're alone, as well too. So it's kind of like a twofold. It works both ways. Like I said, it's not whatever way that your brain works. To me, like I like working both ways. I minimize the stuff I need to do out throughout the day, so therefore I'm doing those things and I can focus on them. And at the same time, when I do have free time, I just stay off those. I try to stay off the social media unless I have to do it for business work or responding to that stuff. I don't have a TV at my house, and removing the things that are luxuries of the life that allow us to really focus on what our purpose is of life. The more that we're bored, the more we think internally, the more we could start realizing and feeling what's going on with our body and being in tune with it.
This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed unbeatable mind coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom-created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour unbeatable mind coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today. Beautiful. So reducing the number of doors we need to open each day allows us time to slow down and kind of create the space that we need to be able to feel our bodies and what our bodies are telling us. That's beautiful.
Yeah, nutrition, movement, or anything else around that. We'll always, if we just listen, and it's hard, and it's not something that you could really be like, this is the exact, there's no playbook. There's no step-by-step.
Right.
And that's what everyone wants, right? And that's what mental fitness is everyone wants the playbook, but there is no playbook because everyone's playbook is entirely different. And we're at different times at different stages in life that we're at. And so the thing is just taking the information and then, great, now I'm overloaded with information. Stop taking information, slow down, relax, try this crazy thing called meditate, try this weird thing called breathing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 weird things that are, yeah.
That's great. So yeah, breath is an amazingly powerful tool to help us slow down too, right? Getting our breath under control, activating our parasympathetic nervous system. Very powerful. Primal Path principles: revive, move, rebuild. Would you walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah. So with Primal Path, we created our own fitness series and sequences and routines. We fill the white space in between the yoga, Pilates, boot camp, CrossFit, power lifter, weightlifter, and combine it all. So our classes in general, we have the 3 basic principles of revive. Our purpose to revive is revive movement back into the body. This slow moving approach, more of like a yoga and Pilates, from core to extremity. I mean, and that's another thing. We need to look internal. We need to look at our hara, which is, the Chinese medicine. We're talking about the hara is what your gut, pretty much. That's your center of balance, where everything is. Where in America, our center of balance is on the shoulders. So we get all the stress loaded up onto our shoulders because our gut isn't happy. That's why, like, we look at traditional Chinese medicine, everything they talk about, everything's fixed in the gut. Well before we had the science of everything how important the gut is to the brain. So when we talk about revive, we're trying to get that movement back into our body with a mix of all those different things, a mix of, like I said, that slow movement, the being on your hands, crawling, animal locomotion, rolling down a hill. Obviously, we're not rolling down hills in classes, but for those people to picture what that looks like, is just like crawling on the ground and rotating, and just look at any, 8 to 12-year-old, whatever they're doing. Yeah, we're probably doing that for a revive sequence in a slower, controlled fashion. From there, we're going to go on to our move, and our move principle is just to build your bone density and make sure we have the longevity of the heart. And we do that through a workout through kettlebells, dumbbells, slam balls, weights, odd objects, stuff like that. And we use interval training. So we'll do a little bit of like, a couple minutes on, a couple minutes rest, couple minutes on, couple minutes rest. And this goal is that you're competing against yourself. Competition inward is a lot more powerful because you're comparing yourself to someone that's equal. When we compare yourself to somebody else in a class or a setting or environment, there's not equal. That's like comparing a mountain to a mountain. Each have its own difficulties that are separate. One doesn't mean that they're more difficult than the other. Sometimes it might. Doesn't mean one's stronger than the other. It's just maybe you're better at the skills on one than the other. Maybe you're a better ice climber, so you do better on K2 than you would on, Everest. So having that body, when we move with what we're capable of moving to move, like I said, improve that bone density, get that cardio up, and move without pain. Our goal is pain-free movements is what we're looking for. So having that movement will also promote that blood flow and also start creating space in your brain to think more positive. It's going to bump up a lot of your hormones as well. And then we also talk about rebuild. So now that we turn the muscles on in the body and we know we can explore the play of the body in a controlled fashion, we've got the heart rate up to work on the longevity of your life and the bone density up, work on the health of your joints. We talk about now the one that everybody wants is I want to look good naked. Like we start working on a higher rep, lower weight tempo training that allows us to really feel the muscles, build the mind muscle connection, which is a thing that lacks, which we talk about as like a GPS signal in the body. If that's not working as well as it could, is not being as efficient, we're not using the right path of our muscles, we're not going to get the definition that we want out of our body. So we always finish off our classes after it's nice and warm and the body's going. We talk about rebuilding the body, and in the class aspect of it, that's that fitness of moving to shape and tone the body like a bodybuilder. But in the same time, we apply these to all other aspects. So we do talk about on the nutrition side, and we do talk about on the mental fitness side, because we look at fitness as 3 components at Primal Path. We look at the physical, like I said, the mental, and the nutritional side. But you can do this stuff. You take that revive, that move, and that rebuild and apply it to the brain. How do we revive the brain? Well, we start taking the blinders off, right? So if we're stuck in this world, we're going to revive the capability of what we can do with the brain. And we're going to take the blinders off. We're going to look at our peripherals. We're going to be able to see the stuff around us. We're creating something from the start. We start moving that brain. All right, let's start getting things done. Let's start writing down our passion and what we want to do. Let's write down our perfect day. Let's get it moving. Let's get it exciting. Let's get it feeling good. And then after we write all that stuff down, we're going to rebuild that brain. And we're going to rebuild that brain by doing slow, controlled movements of working towards that goal. Having checkpoints along that way. It doesn't always have to be slow, but having those checkpoints along the way to rebuild where we want to go. So if we spent our life building a bridge that's not going to hold a horse, well, we got to take that bridge down, rebuild it, put it back on there, and now it works. And I know I'm really bad at analogies, by the way. So
you got the point across.
I think the point, yeah, absolutely.
But having that, building that back up, and anything can be built back up. Everything can be. I'm not saying it's going to be built back up to 100%, but we can build that stuff back. You, and by we, I mean you. I mean, you just need those people in your life that help kind of tie it and explain it, like what you guys do, what we do with mental fitness and physical fitness and adventure and all these things that we have available to ourselves, but we just don't utilize because our work has tied us in from sunrise to sunset, especially with Zooms. People go home, instead of spending their kids, they're going and sending an email to their boss that doesn't even have to be sent until tomorrow, but they want to get ahead. They're losing time with their children. They're losing time with their dogs. They're losing the valuable time of exploring life and breathing in nature and air and moving. And it just slowly makes you miserable and more miserable every single day. We don't take the time to love ourselves, give ourselves the self-respect, revive what we always love doing, move our body the way it needs to do, and rebuild our life.
If you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called Kokoro Yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes. Yeah. So super important, right? The revive it's not optional. It's required for us to be able to show up as our best selves for our families, our friends, our work teammates. Without taking time for ourselves to revitalize, we just don't show up well. We may not see the negative effects of it right away, but over time they build up. And then that's when we start feeling it in our bodies, hunched over, bound up, sore, tight. So that's beautiful.
Absolutely. I did want to go back to something you said I found really interesting, that in Chinese medicine, they refer to the gut as being, the place where we can start fixing other things. We're just now starting to catch on to that here in the States, it seems like. How important is the gut to the mental health and the training, or how do we optimize that?
The gut, as we get more and more knowledge about this on the quote unquote science side of stuff, which is what people need, and that's okay. If people need the justification, I'm glad we can do this. But we also have to realize that the reason why we're just waking up about this is because there's never been a push and support financially from it as well too, right? So we always find cures to diseases that are killing people really quickly. And then when we hit chronic pain, we find a medicine that just reduces the chronic pain. But since it's not killing them, we never go into that further. We don't get the funding to go into the further research to really find out what's going on. And then it gets doctors stuck in this checklist of like, and puts you in a label. Oh, you have Epstein-Barr virus, and you have an autoimmune disease. It'll never be fixed. Or you have an allergy to this, or you're allergic to gluten, and that'll never be fixed. Well, it actually can be fixed. You don't have to be allergic to gluten forever. But there's not enough research in the doctors that are given enough information, nor are they allowed a lot of times to offer up alternative medicine, aka real medicine, for that opportunity. But if we look back in the cultures of what's been happening for over 4,000 years, traditional Chinese medicine, it still works. It's still their form of medicine. And there's an important aspect of Western medicine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's bad about Western medicine and doctors and all that other stuff. I think they're very good, and I'm grateful for it many times. But we need to also just look at the history of the way we lived without all these luxuries and all these niceties and these immediate things that we can have fixed, because a lot of stuff in our body can't be fixed, or it just takes time to be fixed. Can be fixed, but just takes time. And the gut is one of that. It's fixing all the parasites that have happened from the heavy metal poisonings, all the Roundup that we take in, all the dead soil, all the processed foods, all the stress in our life, the depression is all in the gut. And if we don't address that and we don't take care of that, we're doing what we're doing now, but it's going to be tenfold, being miserable and barky at everyone when things come up. And it's like, I just need to fix my gut. Well, that sounds silly. I don't see the science behind it. I don't see this and stuff like that. And it's not for everybody. But those who are willing to take that step, take that time to start addressing and looking at their gut as a no kidding, this will make a difference in your life. You don't have to live with pain and stress and depression, anxiety. You don't have to be suffering every single day. And all we have to do is take the time to look at our nutrition, look at our mindset and be like, something just doesn't feel right. I don't feel good today. Why don't I take a look at my gut? Why don't I reach out to somebody who has talked about the gut brain axis or this gut probiotics and all this other stuff? What is actually happening, And when we take those, we can see small changes. And whether that is taking something that helps build our gut lining, that's really good. But we also need to go that step further and find why we're having that. And a lot of times, like I said, that ties into the parasites that we have in our body that are good for our immune system, but with everything else could be bad. And we have to find a way to talk with people that know about this, that can actually help us guide us down the path to a way to fix that and live a life that's pain-free, that legitimately that gut is our control center of everything.
Yeah. Several things jumped out at me there, Andrew. And to kind of maybe accent or highlight something you just said is with Western medicine, I think Western medicine, in my opinion, does a great job of treating chronic issues, or acute issues.
Mm-hmm.
But the chronic side, they fall short, and for the exact reason you just mentioned, right? And profit, money is not a dirty word. It's not a dirty thing. It's our reality. It's how we live and how we put food on the table. And there has to be a way for these companies to make money doing it. If the money's not there, they're not going to go down that path. But there is one really good company out there that's working is the leaders in the GBX, or gut brain axis connection. And we've all been using their products, and I think we've had some pretty amazing, astounding results from that. But I want to go back just a little bit here and talk about finding the people that can support your health journey, that speak to you. And many years ago, I was having just really some serious health issues, and going to allopathic doctors, Western medicine, they just never could seem to find what was wrong. Right? It was always, try this. Oh, you're lethargic. You seem to be depressed. Here's some Prozac. Go ahead and take that. That'll fix it. Well, that's not going to work. Right? It's not till I found an integrative medicine clinic, one in Denver. I think our listeners may have heard me talk about this in the past, the Sound Clinic, and they're in Denver, that, we did a lot of what would seem to most people to be odd type testing, using muscle testing as the medium to kind of find out what my body really needed. And we determined that, I had Lyme disease, and it was a very long process to kind of clean up the parasites and all the little other things that were imbalanced in my body, until we could get to destroying the Lyme bacteria. And that whole process was just amazing. But it wasn't until I opened myself up to other ideas and possibilities that this solution came along. So the point there, I think, is find people who will support your path and your journey to health. And don't always, listen to your doctor, hear what they have to say, but there's opportunities and options out there for you if you're not getting the results you think. So if somebody tells you, it just is, and you're just gonna have to live with it, I'll push back a little bit and say, what, I'm not willing to really accept that as my default reality for the rest of my life. Anyway, so that's kind of my little 2-cent spiel on it, but I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. With that, I'll do a real quick thing on that. With that, I'm a firm believer. I had Lyme disease when I was 12. I think I was 12 years old. I went to stand up, and my knee was blown up, and I just collapsed on the ground. And I deal with that. And then I look at, if you don't test like positive in 29 of the 40 bars that they test you for Lyme disease, the Western culture will say that you don't have Lyme disease. You can be positive in 28 of them,
right?
28 of them, but you're not at 29. You don't have it. And that's something that is, once again, we have these set numbers that we're required to hit for Western medicine. And I understand, but when you see, you nailed it. Acute, they're great at acute, and I'm so grateful. Chronic, we need to look back at what people have been doing for time and time again. And that manual muscle testing, I literally just, the person who just left my office before you was a functional nutritionist that does exactly that. She teaches people and puts the thing that they are allergic to or sensitive to in their hand for a set period of time, doing this whole practice, testing the muscles. And I love it because that's a way that you can start learning of how important food is and how much it affects you. And that's exactly what we do, kind of like what you went through, that we do with just movement. We don't have the knowledge of the food testing, all that other stuff, but muscle testing, we find out what muscles aren't working and we turn them back on. And it just kind of like, I would say also is when you go through something like that, Andy, you probably have found a new passion for food or your whatever it may be. Let's just say it's food or something like that. But people go, man, how do you always choose to eat healthy? And for me, I'm just a meat and potatoes guy all day. Like, I know how to do diets and I'm master cutting, all that other stuff. Like, I get that, but at the same time, I'm not perfect at eating. Absolutely not. But ever since I dealt with chronic pain, I now go, I got to eat this because this is going to help me. Yeah. And when it changes your mindset of the food that you're putting in and the purpose of the food putting into your system, rather than like, I need to eat this because somebody told me it was healthy and I read about it that it was healthy. Once that changes, that's how people can start changing their diet permanently, is once you can get it stuck in the mindset that this food is feeding your positivity and feeding your gut to be healthy, not it's just food because I'm eating food.
Yeah.
It really is a different experience when you reframe your mindset around that.
Which food is poison to me, and that's what we eliminate, and which food supports me feeling well, where I don't feel my joints don't ache. I can think clearly. I don't have brain fog, right? It's quite profound. And that, I think, in itself is the reason not to eat the poison and to eat the good stuff, right? And that's how you decide to eat healthy.
Yep.
It's not rocket science, I guess, right?
But it's so hard. It's hard to be simple. That's what it comes down to. It's easy to be complicated, whether it's in business, whether it's in nutrition, whether it's in movement. It's cool to grab the flashy thing because everyone's doing it. And I've always been a person who's like, I'm swimming upstream. I'm like, where's everyone going? I'm going to go the opposite way because I'm going to find value. I know I can get value from everyone swimming downstream anytime I want. There's only few I can get value from when I swim upstream. And that's the other people who are willing to swim upstream. So I always like to flock towards the entire opposite of what's going, because that information is going to always be there where everyone's going. Where's all the money going? That information will always be there. There's not going to be those people that are around that are still teaching you, how to build a samurai sword, right? Samurais are gone, but the valuable lessons that you're getting, it's not about the sword. It's about the discipline. It's about the integrity. It's about the resilience you have to come in and do it day in and day out without making tons of money, but you're carrying on that culture that ties into so many more things, but we just write it off like it's not cool anymore. Forget about it. We don't need it. But it's those small things that we're going to start where we're already seeing and like just slowly disappear that we're losing in touch with. And that's where we're here to do, right? That's where you guys are here. We're here to bring people back to their bodies and bring them back to finding what's truly important in life. And through all the death and through all the chaos of life, even if we think back 4,000 years where you just went hunting with your neighbor and he just got eaten by a tiger. Right? Like you got to go next day, you got to go right back out and hunt. Like we can't sit and dwell on these and be afraid of death, because if we feared it, we would never go hunting again and we would have never survived. So it's for us to make sure that we could get that toughness and the resilience that we don't have to deal with that death like that we did back then. But we also have to learn to respect and accept death and also accept what's around us, but maybe try harder to go back to those roots, because there's valuable lessons that we're losing the more and more we get into the systematic world with our blinders on in the concrete jungle.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Where can folks go to find out more about what you do and Primal Path? Yeah,
you can find us at www. If that's still really a thing, is it? I don't know. Findyourprimalpath.com. I'm so old school. I'm still pen and paper type of person. I still do, I try. This digital world is getting crazy, but you can find us at findyourprimalpath.com. Kind of check out what we're doing. We have pretty much all social medias like anything else does. We do have a YouTube channel that we just kind of started this year. We haven't been on social media for the past 6 years because I just been really not trying to touch the social media because it goes against what I value, but I also understand having a business, we need that. So we are growing our YouTube channel. So check some stuff out there. A lot of good information on there. We run a podcast as well, which I'm sure we'll be bringing you guys on, a Primal Path podcast as well too. So yeah, you can hit us up, pretty much find us anywhere on that. And then if you guys got any questions or whatnot, or you want to learn something, don't be afraid to shoot me a DM on my personal page or anything like that, Andrew Pertulis, and as well as reach out any way that you want. I love talking about this stuff. You can hear I love talking about hearing my voice. So I love talking about this stuff. I can talk to them blue in my face. So please, you're never hassling me. It just might take a little bit to get back to you if I'm busy, but have patience because that's what I'm all about building.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. We could probably go on for another 30 minutes because I've got so many more questions, but maybe for another time. And thank you again. Appreciate you.
Hey, no, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. It's really cool. Glad to see the involvement and the spread of knowledge that we're creating, what you guys are doing. For sure, I look forward to having you guys on the podcast. And as with anything, if you need any answers to any questions, feel free to shoot me offline. And I'll gladly talk about them, or we'll do it again one way or another. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank
Be well.
you. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us and live fiercely.